Hi, this is Tim Sanders, founder of the Omnia Radiation Balancer, and I'm honoured to have been a guest on the Journey to Truth show. Now, with phone radiation, most people think that because they can't feel anything, nothing is happening. But the reality is that this radiation is causing a lot of stress and damage in your body, and your brain doesn't register that it's happening. The likelihood is that you'll only find out about it when this continuous stress shows up in the body as disease. And this is backed up by well over 10,000 peer-reviewed studies showing that EMF causes serious diseases when they tested it on rats. The Omnia Radiation Balancer removes this stress. It's proven to balance the blood, it brings perfect crystalline structure to water, and our kinesiology muscle tests show that the body goes super strong when you stuck it on your phone. And it works with 5G. You just order enough patches to cover every radiating device in your home, and you're done. It lasts forever. But to be clear, let's not get complacent. We must all stop 5G together. So big thanks and big love to Tyler and Aaron. Click on the link below and you can quickly and permanently bring balance back to your body. Thank you.
Hey guys, you're listening to Journey to Truth podcast. Tonight we're joined by Justin Deschamps of Stillness in the Storm and Neil Gaur of Portal to Ascension. I would say that they are the definition of disclosure activists, just by the amount of hours they put in on their channels. And Justin, you as far as writing articles, and now you guys do Werewolf Radio. And it's just amazing the work you guys are doing. And we're so grateful to have you join us tonight and talk about everything that's going on right now because, you know, my gosh, it's never ending. Every day, it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting in a sense. At the same time, you know, it's like you kind of feel bad for getting excited, but there is a lot of positive things and stuff to look forward to if you're existing in that mindset. That being said, I'll turn it over to you guys, let you explain maybe your channels or introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Neil. You go first.
All right, cool. So thank you firstly for having us. This is amazing. I've seen you guys, all your posts, your Instagrams, and I really appreciate everything you're doing. So thank you. And for those out there who don't know who I am, I'm the founder of an organization called Portal to Ascension. Been around for around 12 years now. And, before that was just research in an online group. And for the last 12 years, I've been creating events, small meditation events. 2012, I started creating all-day ancient alien conferences where I was going to, conferences that we all frequent, I guess, and I would meet speakers, get their phone numbers, emails, and start facilitating events for them, and even taking some of them on tour up and down the coast, all the way from San Diego to Vancouver. I did 3 tours in 2010 and 2011. One was based on extraterrestrial channeling, one was on sound healing, another one was an Ancient Aliens tour, and just really getting into event production. It was a hobby for quite some time. But then come 6 years ago, I was actually going to give up on all this awareness. I was like, I should just go do something that has to do with my degree, business management, whatever that means, and just do what my parents had told me to do. And at that point, somebody came to me and gave me some ideas, and also gave me like an angel investment and said, rebrand Portal to Ascension. So 6 years ago, I stopped doing live events and I went 100% online for a few years where there was no overhead costs. And I created this online university that started with 1 event a month. Now we have 1 event every single week. And we actually do 110 events on average every single year. 80% of them are online. It's just like Netflix for consciousness, where you sign up for the individual event, you can view it on the back end afterwards. And then 20% of them are live, where we have True World History Atlanta that Justin and I are co-producing. When we're going to be doing some holistic fairs in Asheville. We had a Portal to Ascension conference that I know, Aaron, you were going to come to, but you couldn't make it out to, right?
Wanted to, yeah.
I know, right? So we had those events. So I've been kind of testing the waters now, getting back into live events. Justin and I have been connected for a couple of years. We're doing our own thing. And it really was like, I don't know, I got to say love at first sight, man. This guy is like freaking amazing. Like I really resonate with Justin so much. And I love the fact that we don't agree on a lot of things, but we can talk about them, Yes. So then he came over here after Disclosure Fest last year, spent a week or so, and it was just the 2 of us really, and we just started brainstorming what can we do to create. It was the great energizing rejuvenation session, right? And through that came one of the aspects of what we're going to be doing, which was a werewolf radio. Let's create a podcast where it's an extension of our information that we already work on, but a place that we can have these discussions. Because we're sitting down, I'm sure you guys do the same thing when you're together. Like, you're sitting down and you're just having such an amazing discussion. You're like, damn, I wish we recorded this.
Yeah.
So that's what kept happening.
Yep.
And then, so we created a werewolf radio with that intention. And now it's just become kind of grown from there. We start out with 30 minutes of discussion between us on topics that we want to talk about. Then we bring in a speaker. And at the same time, Justin gets to promote what he's doing with Stillness, and I get to tell people about Portal to Ascension.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I love it. I caught your last couple with Billy Carson, and it's my understanding that he's putting Portal to Ascension as a channel on his Forbidden Knowledge platform, which is really cool.
Nice.
And Justin, you have Stillness in the Storm not Stillness in the Storm, Into the Storm, that you're working on for Edge of Wonder TV. So it's cool you guys are both doing that. Also, you want to touch on that, Justin?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I mean, when Neil and I got together, like Neil, you were saying, I mean, we just resonated with each other so well. Like I started Stillness in the Storm a few years ago in 2013, just because I was doing a lot of research and I really wanted to be more active and like add my voice to the choir of people. And, and within a couple of years' time, it got a life of its own. And then when, Neil and I met, Neil, when I met you back in, I want to say it was in early 2017, maybe. I can't remember, but it was, the kind of consciousness where I like to call it escape velocity consciousness or over unity consciousness. You're doing a lot of self-work. You've been studying. You're in the cave, like just like pouring through the ancient manuscripts kind of thing. And then you're like, all right, I've had enough. And you want to go out and you want to go do something, and then you're in like hustle mode. Like, all right, let's see how many changes I can make, how much healing I can do for myself, how many people I can help around me, what big, awesome things can I do to help spearhead the truth and have it shared with the world. And so, when we got together, it was like, oh, this is another guy that's like right on the same level with me. And, it was just like magic. So, it's been amazing having the Werewolf podcast. We get a chance to talk about a lot of awesome things, have that dialogue and banter. And, it's interesting that for most of human history, the way we shared information is the way we're doing right now in conversation. And psychologically, there's whole systems in our brains and our consciousness that are designed to organize and integrate information so it's useful for us during conversation. So, I mean, conversation can be an amazing tool. So, I really thought that was helpful. And with Into the Storm, started it on in February, and it's been great. I've been gathering like so much information over the past, 10 years. I'm a little obsessive when it comes to research. I was actually just talking to my girlfriend about this. I'm only like very vaguely familiar with astrology. I know like the basic principles and some of the mechanics, but I don't know like all the specifics about what this planet in this house means necessarily. Mm-hmm. So me and my roommate, we both have Pluto in Scorpio. Yeah, that's what it is. And so what that apparently means is that, you are just like passionate about discovering hidden information. Anything that's hidden, you're like, you want to push right past that curtain. You want to get right into what's going on. So because of that, I just, I've been accumulating like a ton of crazy stuff, and I think about a lot about it. So that means I can integrate it just like a lot of other great minds have done that you probably have had on your show. So the Into the Storm project is a really great way for me to take all this stuff and try to package it in a form that's easily digestible. It waves you through a story. Right now I'm on the Ultimate Plan of the Draco series, and I've probably got about 4 or 5 episodes of that left. Actually, I'm going to be releasing one here in the next hour on edgeofwonder.tv. So yeah, it's just an amazing opportunity. And I want to thank you guys for doing what you do. I mean, we need all hands on deck. We're in the middle of a massive awakening right now. Everybody's voice matters. And the more we can form a unity, not to separate our individualities, not to mask what makes us different, but to embrace that and then create a place where everybody's differences can come together to form a symphony, a chorus of truth-seeking voices. Wow, nothing can stop that. You guys are just rocking it out of the park. So
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you so much. You nailed it, though.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we want to do with this.
And it's important that there's a lot. It seems like there's so many places to go, so many videos to watch, so many podcasts. Everybody's putting out content, especially now while they have time. But not everybody resonates with everybody, so it gives people options. Everyone's drawn towards a certain person or a certain Edge of Wonder or Werewolf Radio, and each one offers something different. So that's what's cool about that, because it gives people options, and we need that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And especially now what we're going through, which is kind of what I want to segue into. First, I want to talk about what you guys think about this UFO release that we just got from the Navy. The DoD release the Pentagon officially released the Tic Tac and the Tic Tac UFO.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? I think it's definitely government craft that we've had that was developed in a black budget program. They're just releasing it. What do you think?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Neil.
Well, okay. So when the article first, I saw the article yesterday, the first thing I thought was, let me go look at the date on this. Is this the old article? Because I didn't know. And then I realized that the confirmation before was from the Navy, and this is from the Pentagon, right? So it was seconding basically what had happened then. It's extremely interesting to me. Firstly, I was actually kind of happy that there was a non-coronavirus article out. Because, dude, right? All cannabis legalization, psychedelic legalization, and UFO articles have gone, man. It's been taken over by coronavirus.
Coronavirus.
So I was like, oh, this is refreshing. Drip disclosure. Isn't it funny? I'm like, oh, drip disclosure, how refreshing.
Yeah.
But so when I saw that and I read it, I was like, oh, interesting. Now the Pentagon is kind of saying yes, for sure. But they've been circulating these same videos over and over and over. The Pentagon has even said that this is just the beginning. These are just some of the videos. So they have more. You can tell they're doing this in a controlled fashion, but they're deliberately focusing on these ones. And I do feel like I kind of lean to what you said, that it could be some government craft. I don't really know, but I do know that they're coming out with the disclosure in their own form in order to basically drip it to the public in a way that suits them, rather than, full disclosure, which will actually be beneficial to all of humanity. For example, this is all started with Tom DeLonge release talking about these UFOs. But if you notice, any of the communications in regards to this have never been about, are these ETs who are driving these aircraft? It's been about technology and how we can utilize this technology to better, our basically national security and military. It's really kind of taking the conversation away from the fact that if these UFOs are UFOs and they aren't human, because they're trying to basically imply that, oh, we don't know what they are. We don't even, we know that the Russians aren't even capable of it. Just saying things like that. They're saying that they know that there's no other government on this planet that are capable of creating these craft. So they're implying some sort of extraterrestrial connection there, because they're not admitting they have a black ops project happening. But we don't talk about that. We talk about the craft. We talk about how we can monetize it, how we can weaponize space. So there's definitely something going on there that's not in alignment with the Ascension, right? I'm just kind of observing it. I'm going to see what's happening from this, but right now, it's kind of weird. It happens in increments too. I think they control the dates when they want to release this. I even think that it happening in the midst of this whole coronavirus thing was kind of happened for a reason too, maybe because more people are at home. People called me today that are my friends that aren't into this conversation, that had never called me before in the last 3 years through all the other drip disclosures, right? And it's because they're at home and they're aware of it now.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts.
And as soon as I saw DeLonge's name in the article, I knew exactly where they were going with it. I knew what the agenda. I knew exactly. I didn't even really have to read the article. I did, but I knew, okay, Tom DeLonge, just Tic Tac, and somebody actually on Twitter I saw. I forgot the handle, but somebody recognized that the video that they uploaded, the DoD uploaded to put out, is actually a download from YouTube. It still has the YouTube metadata, and the actual original footage is a lot better quality than what they just released. So that's kind of suspicious. Also, why would they do that? Why would they have to download it from YouTube and then
that's a little
weird. It makes me wonder if it really is a Pentagon release, or if there's something else going on behind it too. I know Dr. Sala, John D'Souza, Mike Barra have all came to the conclusion together that they believe this is an advanced military drone. It doesn't take away from the fact that we're still, seeding the consciousness and, waking up people with this drip disclosure. What are your thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, well, I think, in a grand picture sense, like all the events that happen on our worlds are opportunities for us to do something with. And if the question is this going to be helpful for the awakening of humanity, then the answer is yes. But the follow-up question is, what are we going to do about it? And if we're just sitting on our hands waiting for the president or the bad guys to all of a sudden change their colors and want to start revealing the truth, then I don't think that's the right way to approach it. So I actually think that this UFO, like what you were suggesting, is probably a secret government craft. I also suspect that there's a breakaway civilization somewhere on our world. It's possible that they're in Antarctica or in some subterranean cavern and things like this. Why is it that John Kerry went to go to Antarctica right after Trump won the election? Why are all these people going to Antarctica after Trump won the election? Was Trump part of the deep state? Was he an establishment person? Were they going back down there to get new marching orders? These kind of things. All those, I think, are questions that we can ask to try to wrap our head around what's happening. And, I do think there's a political aspect. The media is losing the plot in a big way. I would argue a big piece of that chess move, if you want to think about it that way, is Trump doing these press conferences. I mean, he's speaking directly to the people through Twitter. He's speaking directly to the people through these press conferences. And whether you love the guy or you hate a guy, it doesn't really matter. What you get to see is you get to see what he says, and then you get to see how the media reports on it. And the discrepancy is so obvious that anybody who hasn't sacrificed their intellectual honesty on the altar of social acceptance is going to see the fact that this is obviously lies and there's something going on. So, yeah, I think, the full amount of disclosure we have available is so massive. We do need some type of controlled process for getting it out there. In the beginning, I was a little bit more idealistic, and I'm like, let's just let all the truth out. Everything will fix itself. And yeah, we can certainly go that route. But, the deeper psychology is here. The basis of trauma is when there's too much information that you don't know how to handle. Yeah. And so, I want the truth to get out, but I don't want to traumatize people in the process, because if they get traumatized, they're in a non-thinking, irrational state. They're much easier to control, much easier to manipulate. And that's what these guys want to do. Right. So yeah, I think, we're in a position where we as alternative media, we as truth seekers, have incredible amounts of power. We've got a lot of free time on our hands right now where we can actually interact with each other, form groups, form initiatives, form trusts, form coalitions and grassroots efforts, so that we can better deal with the things that are becoming. And I think this year we've got some big stuff on the ticket as far as things happening this year.
Seriously, so. Yeah. Also, to kind of add to what you're saying, when it comes to the media, I'm now 100% convinced that it's all about ratings, all about ratings and also all about agendas, right? And I think it was Project Mockingbird, right? Was that the one with the CIA basically had full-time employees, right? So for who doesn't know out there, I think it might have been FBI too, but no, the CIA had full-time employees working for news stations, and then Project Mockingbird, supposedly ended. But what normally happens with those is they just go black budget and they continue. And not only were these anchors actually being paid from the news stations just to have they covered, CNN would be paying them, but they'd also be getting paid from the CIA because they were pushing the agenda. So that continues. So I think there's two things going on. That we have not only ratings-oriented media, but we also have these people that are hired from, these three-letter agencies or whatever in order for them to push this agenda. So when it comes to releasing this whole thing about UFOs, I'm not too sure. It's just so coordinated. For example, when Tom DeLonge came out with the initial thing that kind of started this whole process, right? Talking about these videos, every single competing news agency had the same exact headlines and the same words in it. And you've seen those viral videos with news anchors saying the same thing at the end, this is dangerous to our democracy, for example. They all say that, right?
They all say the exact same.
Yeah. So that's what happened. And I was like, wait, this is a conservative one. This is a liberal one. This ain't the same thing. They talk crap on each other all the time. And it was so like blatant when the Tom DeLonge thing happened. And it was almost like they waited. They all came out at the same time too. It was like the same minute. So it was just like, wow, this just shows that it's all owned by the same whatever. And they're just doing this for some sort of reason that we don't really know. We don't know what the agenda is.
Well, and unfortunately, I don't know about you guys, but the media right now, you know, we've always known about Mockingbird. We've known that it's been a lie, it's been corrupt. But does it seem like it's getting worse, or are we just more aware of it now? Because what I mean, well,
we're just more aware of it.
That's the thing. Like it doesn't seem like, you know, maybe we just weren't paying attention, and all of a sudden now it's to the surface. Now it's on the front lines, and everybody's seeing it. So and the censorship right now is insane. It's unfair. I mean, it's really, really it's sad. It's worse than 1984. I mean,
but it's also kind of like, to me, it's like a good sign, because it means they're that desperate, that they're basically freaking out right now because they're so close to completely losing power, that they're just like, not even, because before they would do censorship and they would do all kinds of stuff, but like a lot more subtly, right? They don't want to do anything drastic to like really wake people up to what they're doing and what their agendas are. But now it's like they don't even care about that. It's like they're like, we don't have a choice. We just have to censor everything and throw out all our, you know, stuff, like no matter how crazy it is, you know.
Right.
What we're seeing happen right now.
Yeah, I mean, I understanding the censorship agenda is really interesting, because, you know, I study a lot of law, and I was trying to understand, like, why is it that they even came out with this internet? Why is it so much information like out there? If the whole basis of the Matrix is that they have to keep certain truths hidden, then why is there so much of it readily accessible on the internet? Well, the answer I've come up with, which seems to be, you know, the one that's the most correct as far as I can tell, is that and I actually covered a lot of this in the episodes I'm putting out on Into the Storm right now, if you want to check this out. Well, basically, the cabal had to create a self-imposed slavery system. And the reason they needed to do that is because when you use overt control, when you're like literally whipping people in the fields to keep them picking the cotton or whatever it is you need them to do, they are not creative. Their energy that they put out is largely fearful energy, but there's not any innovation. And as the society, in order to ascend, in order to go to the higher states of consciousness, which the bad guys are trying to do too, they need information, they need wisdom, they need knowledge, they need data to crunch on, and then evolve their soul through gaining wisdom and contemplation. So if you got an overt slavery system, which we've had for most of our history, at least the stuff we know about, then they can't really move that forward. But if you create a self-imposed slavery system, then all the slavery gets hidden behind a veil. And now people on the slave plantation think they're free, which means they're innovating, they're creating things. And then the cabal can hijack and harvest that information. So to your point, Aaron, you know, I think one of the things that's happened is that the censorship has gotten more overt because they've lost the plot. They thought that they were going to be able to do all these things. And, you know, we can get more into the details of how that works, but they thought they were going to be able to control society. Now they can't. And now they're just frantically trying to stomp the hedgehogs. You ever play that game in the arcade where you try like hit the hedgehogs, you know?
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole.
That's it, whack-a-mole, yeah. They're trying to whack-a-mole everything and they can't do it. So it's a really good sign.
It's like, you know, I've been saying for a while, we have the illusion of freedom, you know, and it's freedom through diplomacy, almost. Like they basically, like, we're the US, we're like a test tube for pharmaceutical companies, for agriculture and food. Other countries aren't even as bad as us, but we come across like we're the most free, right? Like no one has freedom like the US. For example, artificial flavorings, red 5 and blue, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's completely illegal in Europe, completely, right? Over here, it's just like part of our diet, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just like their own people, these own corporations, their own country, they're experimenting on, and they're getting all these results from it and figuring out how to control us. But here we are every single day tooting the fact that we're the most free country on the planet, which really isn't the case. Now, in regards to your point for the media, like, yeah, I think it's been the same for quite some time. However, they've perfected psychological warfare to the point that they are now using marketing tools. For example, the head of CNN, and I think I might have just read an article recently that Trump, like, something happened where the head of CNN has been switched, or one of the media agencies.
He stepped down. Yeah, I believe he stepped down, actually.
Okay. So he was actually the head of ESPN before CNN. And he had this whole mentality of presenting news like sports. So if you look at ESPN and how they have all those windows and they're all arguing back and forth, there's videos out there that show you the mirror reflection of how he took his sports marketing plan and put it in CNN. So that's something they did as well. That's, more new than ever, is they've figured out how to make it a game and how to get people on the edge of their seat and dramatize it all. And that's what they perfected, getting people lost into the drama of the news rather than giving anything of any substance.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
And
it's like, so it's all emotional manipulation, essentially, is what they do. So they know what gets people riled up, what gets people angry, fearful, upset, happy, everything. And they know what their agenda is. So they're like, all right, what can we, along with the deep states, false flags, and like the things that they do, the whole problem, reaction, solution, like they create problems and create things that then they're like, oh, now we have to do this. Here's the solution. And then it just furthers their agenda. And then the media is kind of like the psychological component of that, where they're like pushing the fear, like what they're doing with the coronavirus right now. They're like, all right, we got to just constantly push fear and fear. So people will be afraid and will stay in their homes and will wear masks and will submit to vaccines and all these like insane things that we would never, ever agree to otherwise. Right. So they manipulate our emotions that we naturally feel towards like a scary virus, that when you really look at the objective data of it without that manipulation, you would never react in that way, because it doesn't line up. But that's the whole matrix, right? You get stuck in this matrix where you're not thinking for yourself. You're not being a sovereign being. You're being manipulated by the authorities outside of you in the matrix.
And I saw a meme today of a mask, and it said mind control device. And it's so true though, because if you really understand what's going on, you realize how I think it's dumb to have to wear a mask everywhere you go. People are driving with them. And it's the mind control aspect of it also. It's not just a fear, but it is MK Ultra. And we've all talked about this for ages now. So I wanted to kind of segue into these WikiLeaks dumps. I wanted to know your thoughts on it, because some people are saying that this is just it's nothing new. It's nothing new. It's just all basically accessible now. Is that what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, last week I saw on Twitter that somebody was posting that the WikiLeaks archives were unlocked. So I started looking at it, and the link that was provided, it looked like a back-end entry to a website. If you've ever seen like the back end of a website, you click on it and it shows just like a data archive of all these files. And that's what it looked like. And so at the time, I didn't have time to necessarily do a whole lot of research on it, but I just threw up what I knew and asked people to, give me feedback so I could fill out the article with whatever was happening. And somebody right away, it was really great. That's why I love my audience so much. Somebody right away, they went to the archive.org. They pulled up the website, because for those of you who don't know, Wayback Machine, there's these services. Wayback Machine is one of them. Every time a website gets uploaded, if it's put on the database, then it'll archive the information. And so apparently this link that had been released was archived back in 2014, I believe. And so the vast majority of the files that you go to when you to this link were already on the archive. So what that means is that the vast majority of the files are not new. However, another researcher, which I also updated my article for, if you all are looking for this, you can go to Stillness in the Storm, just search for WikiLeaks up at the top left. It should pop right up. She went through and combed through a lot of the files, and she said that there was actually, I think, anywhere from like half a dozen to a dozen of ones that she found that were newer information. So there's thousands of files. I mean, frankly, I got my hands in so many other things. That's why I use like researchers in my audience and things like this, because I just don't have time to like pour through all this. But it does look like either somebody got into the back of the website and released the link, or this was a controlled release. But what's interesting is that normally when WikiLeaks does a massive release, that's on their WikiLeaks page, they do a press release, they put it on Twitter, there's like a whole thing, the media covers it. For example, John Podesta, when his emails got put up in the archive, they went through the emails and they made them searchable. So there's a whole portal on the WikiLeaks site. You click on John Podesta, you can literally search through everything. So the short answer to that long explanation is that it seems like the majority of the files are not new. However, what's in the files is incredible information, regardless of whether it's new or not. And there might still be some newer nuggets that are going to be important for what's going to unfold over the course of the year.
And to somebody who's never been there, it's all new information. Essentially.
Exactly. So yeah, seems like very interesting. It's hard to tell whether or not this is something that was coordinated, or if, like I said, somebody just got access to the back end and dropped the link on Twitter or something like that. So
yeah.
And
I know you guys already touched on that on your channel, but we haven't discussed it yet. And there's a lot of controversy. People are wanting to know. So thanks for clarifying that. I personally haven't gone and checked it out, but I'm kind of doing what you did, just kind of relying on some other people to bring forward information, because sometimes you just can't get your hands in everything.
Yeah, there's only so much
there's
time.
a lot to go through, and and even the people that are going through it, some of them might be going through it with their own intentions and agenda, and they can translate it in whichever way they want.
Right.
One thing that I did appreciate was when WikiLeaks emails came out with Hillary. Was it Edgar Mitchell and Podesta about Skyping with Obama, talk about ETs. Like Grant Cameron actually spent weeks, and I was in communication with him like every other day. Literally was the one going through them, pulling all these articles, and for like 4 months straight, just was posting a new WikiLeaks email about ETs like every other day. And that took a lot. He had to literally put everything else to the side, not even go to any conferences, and just focus on that specifically.
Right.
Wow. Well, yeah. And you mentioned Hillary. I just wanted to bring up or bring attention to it's funny how she is all of a sudden like kind of being put back in the spotlight right now. And it's curious to me because maybe something is coming. We know she's going to have to testify at some point. Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
About Hillary specifically?
I don't want to get too much into politics. I just think that it's curious that all of a sudden she's like being put in a spotlight.
You think like Biden with they're going to say he's unfit, and then Hillary's going to thrown in there. That's what a lot of people are speculating, like Biden, because they're everyone's endorsing Biden right now, and they're at the front. But it's like, do they really think he has a chance, or are they going to do like a bait and switch kind of thing?
Biden is more favorable in the polls than Hillary was, so she wouldn't be the one to switch out.
Yeah.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess what I was getting at was that I just think it's funny that all attention on her. Is it because that something's going to happen and they're going to expose some of her crimes? So right now they're kind of like bringing her into the spotlight. Maybe like they're setting her up. So this does come forward.
Yeah, it's really interesting. A few years ago, I would have had a pretty, unidimensional perspective on all this. Like, oh, the media is lying to us. Everybody in government's a liar. Everybody in the military is part of this deep state cooperation. They're all boogeymen. It's all bad. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And with Q and everything like that, it's just, in my mind, having looked at a lot of the information and, being somebody who is versed in epistemology, which is like basically the science of what makes something true or not. it's undeniable that there's obviously a positive military operation happening, or an aspect of the military operation, you know. So I think interpreting the political events in the past 4 years has been a little difficult. It used to be that you could just assume everything was negative and just kind of leave it at that. But now it makes me wonder if there is some type of operation happening. Who's going to be the most catalyzing for consciousness? What's going to wake people up the most if somebody gets indicted, if somebody goes down?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Probably like a Hillary Clinton, right? You know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
for
it could be
myself, I've been jaded on the fact that, you know, so many times we've been talking about Hillary getting arrested any day now, and then I just like gave up on it entirely. You know, I would love for, you know, the truth to come out, but there's so many people within like the media and the establishment that are pro Hillary that if it does come out, it's so easy just to say it's a conspiracy theory now, right? Legitimate emails came out that said things that really were incriminating, but even the regular person doesn't have time to not only research it, but will only listen to what they're being told. And what they're being told, those guys are just conspiracy theorists, right? If they look at the body count with the Clintons, right? There's a lot of evidence to prove this thing, but it does sound crazy to even say. So people jump on too quickly saying that you're just crazy conspiracy theorists. And, you know, they've done a really good job on coining that term for the last 40 something years. And at this point, I don't know, like I want to believe that people can come up to their own conclusions and we can make a shift in consciousness without having some authority figure tell us. But when I look at the world, I see that most people won't, even if the media says aliens are real, aliens are real, aliens are real, they're probably gonna have to say it every single day for like 4 weeks before somebody goes, hey, did you know aliens are real? You know,
Yeah.
like before everybody figures it out. Like that's how docile people have become.
Yeah.
So
look at the recent release with what we were just talking about, that the Pentagon confirmed that was indeed an unidentified, and
Yeah.
and it's barely, everyone just kind of like yawn, like it's not even like, that's how crazy things are right now.
But
and how
you want to know what they are worried about? A friend of mine just told me today, he was at Walmart and they have the bleach locked up. You have to get an employee to come unlock the bleach so you can buy bleach now.
Wow.
Like,
ridiculous.
that's
Jesus.
what they're worried about.
Yeah.
Which this is a testament to what you were saying, Neil. I mean, it's insane. You know, you'd like to think that people could come to these conclusions on their own.
Well, I'm seeing kind of like a split though. And I hear a lot of people talking about this because I'm seeing a lot of people waking up right now. Like we call it the Great Awakening. Like we're seeing people wake up left and right and on different levels and at different rates, but at the same, it ultimately, like more than ever and faster than ever, we're seeing so many people wake up to truths and spiritually awaken and everything else. And at the same time, we're also seeing how asleep so many people are and how ingrained in the matrix so many people still are. And they're so asleep and caught up in all this nonsense and lies and deception and everything else. And we're also seeing so many people wake up and kind of at the same time. So there's like it's like these two realities, two timelines existing simultaneously. And they're both getting more and more
separated.
Yeah. Like they're both ramping up. They're both like energizing. And it's like, are we going to be seeing, is this like a timeline split that we're going to be seeing? Like, is there something, is it going to get to the point where, because a lot of people are seeing all the chaos happening and the craziness, and they're seeing like civil war in our future and a crazy war and like a lot of death and chaos coming up soon. Like we just interviewed Carrie Cassidy, and she's kind of on that camp, but like she sees it going like
she's on the negative timeline for sure.
Well, she's like, well, maybe like years and years in the future it'll get good, but it's gonna get really bad. We're gonna go to war with China, and all these people, some people are gonna die.
No one truly knows what's gonna happen, you know. So I stay away from people who give me definite answers like this is what's gonna happen. But we could have an awakening overnight. That's still possible, right? We didn't expect this coronavirus to do what it did and give us all this collective dark night of the soul just like that, right? So right now things are so uncertain. We don't know. But what you just mentioned is a good conversation to have, and I'll start it out with this, and I would love your opinions. But you probably remember the splitting of the world theory, right? I think Wilcock was really behind that in the beginning too. Yeah. Fourth density positive, fourth density negative, right? And, back 2008, 2009, 2012, I was like, contemplating on that. And then after 2012, I was like, no soul left behind. We're all going for it together. But then who am I to judge in this reality based on the context of good and bad? It's good to ascend. It's not good to ascend. Who am I to judge someone who chooses a path before incarnating to have an experience that is negative? And sometimes it's actually even more of a beautiful thing if you chose to stay unconscious and you incarnated here and you chose to live that journey. And I chose to wake up. I chose to transcend and leave it. It doesn't mean that I'm any better than the person that didn't, and that experience of the darkness that individual has given us has allowed me to have the contrast of duality that I came here for in the first place. And without that, where would I be? And it goes all the way back to the Gnostic text of Lucifer, when the original Christian text never said that Lucifer came down here to be the devil. He was a volunteer. God basically said, I'm creating this reality, this realm, and I need my most trusted angel to go down to this planet and give people the experience of darkness so that they can learn what the light is. And the most trusted angel, Lucifer, raised his hand. This is before 325 AD and before the Council of Nicaea, before Constantine completely manipulated Christianity. So the original text is even saying that this was all a game in the first place, right? So I feel like I was at, okay, yes, we're going to split. Everybody's frequency is going to be shifted. Maybe one day we'll exist in a world where we just don't see those people anymore because our frequency range is so different. Then I went to like, oh no, nobody left behind. We got to go together. But now I'm at a neutral place where I don't judge whether you're ascending or you feeling like you're not going to ascend. And it seems that we could be going to that world because more than ever now, man, we're so divided. Our belief systems are so different that there's even been prophecies that the U.S. will split into 4 tribal communities. And I see that when I look at the geography of the U.S. and how people have similar beliefs. We can get along like that, right? So it makes sense that people will go to communities in the future that actually they're more in alignment with, because people are really upset at the other right now, right? And it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. It seems like it's getting a little more divided. But that's not a negative thing. That's just the human experience that we have right now. Where are we going to be on the end of it? I am hopeful that we're going to have a world of unity and transparency. And if you choose not to be in that world, then, blessings to you. But that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Well, it's also understanding the reality of creating your own timeline also. I think that that's entirely possible. And it's something that people aren't aware of, or maybe people don't practice it enough, but you can put yourself on that positive timeline. If there is a split, like you're saying, I think that we all have the ability to create that future that we want. And that's the whole part of the awakening, is to wake up to realizing you have that power.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, precisely. Yeah. I think, so if the question is, like what's going to happen? Are we all going to collectively ascend, or is there going to be a bifurcation or splitting? I think, to your point, Neil, and I agree that, if free will is real, then everybody has to actually have a choice. And, if the universe just forced everybody to ascend, then that wouldn't really be free will, would it?
Where's the learning in that too? Yeah.
Exactly. So I think, if you can see with the eyes of the Creator, then you realize that every soul is actually doing everything they need to be doing right now to evolve and grow. Mm-hmm. And that's the beautiful majesty of the Creator's creation, is that the Creator set up the game so perfectly that no matter what you did, you were always going to be served soul growth. Wow. Yeah. Just the fact that that's even possible, it's like mind blowing. You know what I mean? So, I think we're in a situation where, and because of the way, human nature works, if you've never taken the time to really understand the truth and develop your own thinking about why something is true, especially if it's a belief you hold, then if somebody tries to degrade that belief or new truth comes out that invalidates it, you're going to be thrown into a tailspin because you never had possession of the truth to begin with. You just had a blind belief. And right now we're living in a world where there's just so many blind beliefs flowing around that you're going to feel a lot of healthy pain from that situation. You know, it's kind of like when you go to grab a pan on the stove and you don't have an oven mitt on, what happens? You know, you get burned, right? Well, if you're smart, if you really take stock of the truth of what happened there and absorb that experience, you probably won't want to grab another pan on the stove again without an oven mitt, right? So, you know, right now we're living in a situation where there's so much BS and fake news out there, and it's all becoming more apparent that you know, the creators' plan for installing and improving people's thinking by having them suffer the consequences of bad thinking is like ramping up to the nth degree. We're in like double black diamond, like expert level, like version of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really hopeful. And, you know, I think this, to leave this last point, I'll say that everybody has their own process in this. You know, it's very easy to get wrapped up in what you think everybody else should be doing. You know, especially when you start getting a few nuggets of truth, you're like, oh, this is a truth. And, you know, you got to believe it. And if you don't believe it, then you're a shill, and, you know, all these kind of things. And it's like, no, we're all on the path. We're all on our own path on the mountain. And you got to pay attention to what you're doing right now. And as long as you're protecting your rights and you're not infringing on anybody else's rights, then you should just encourage people to do what they need to do, you know, that kind of thing. So,
yeah. And I also sometimes I see people and I wonder if maybe some people just aren't meant to wake up to this reality, and they're supposed to stay in the dark to create that balance. I always wonder about that, because some people, I see them existing in a program. You know, that's kind of the interesting part about what we're doing. It's not like we're elevating ourselves and putting ourselves on a pedestal, but you do elevate yourselves to a place where you can start seeing different programs in place. And I see people existing in those programs, and I wonder, I was like, they'll never get out of that at this pace. They're never going to get out of that. And is that designed that way to create the balance that we need? You know, it's, you know, we just need that tipping point. Do we need everybody? I don't know.
Well, yeah. The thing is like, we're each individual souls that are all at a different level in our soul evolution, essentially. So, I think it's just a simple matter of like, the people that are going to awaken are at that level that, they're just there, you know, and it's just like a natural process. And the people that aren't there, you can't force somebody to go from 1 to like 100, you know, like you can't force growth. They have to come to it on their own, and you can, you know, you can facilitate it, and you can like help them. You can try to help them and try to give them truth and wisdom, and really just showing love is the most powerful thing, though, honestly. And that's what I've learned is like, and you know, it's further proof that we live in a universe made of love, is that like, it's the most powerful force. It really is. And the more you just live in that state and show people love and exude that, like that transforms people faster than anything else. And I agree. And wakens people up faster than anything else. And you know, it's like the people that are in this, their souls just aren't, they're just at a very not very evolved state. And it can sound like arrogant to say that, but it's really not. It's just a matter of the reality of things. You know, we're all in a different place in our journey, and no one's better or worse. We're all just at a different place along the path. And the Law of One like talks a lot about this. And like we're all one, but we're all individuated consciousness. Like basically we're all source experiencing itself and individuated consciousness, and at a different level of like remembering and coming into itself.
Yeah, straight up, man. It's the universal paradox. We're one, but we're also individual. How does that exist?
Right.
The universe is infinite, but our minds can only think of things in finite terms. How is that possible? Therein lies the illusion, you know? Exactly. So, and I feel like I trip out often about how different my thought process is compared to many other people, right? And especially my own family. Like, I could never imagine my family ever being into this secret space program, ETs, Pleiadians, Arcturians, channeling, like sound frequency is science, and that's still like fringe for them, right? So it's like when we get into the real like nitty gritty topics that we all talk about, it's just so different, and we're existing in different realities. And a lot of people don't even understand that the reality that we're within even exists. And if you bring it up to them, I have brought it up to people, and it just goes right through them. They don't even acknowledge it. It's almost like a frequency mismatch, It's just happens.
Fairy tale nonsense.
Yeah.
Or it just doesn't register. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm working part-time right now, just a seasonal thing at Lowe's, right? And part of the reason why I actually decided to do it was like, even like I realized working there is taking too much time for Portal to Ascension. And I'm like, damn, I could be doing events right now. But part of the main reason was I don't hang out with enough people that aren't into this stuff. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be around people that don't even know about this and see how I engage with them, because I'm 100% this all the time. All my conversations are this, people I talk to. So it's like I'm actually experimenting with myself now to see if I can still talk to regular people. Because it's really important to be able to communicate what you feel to everyone, not just like keep the same jargon going on. So I've been working on that. And part of Portal to Ascension, I've been saying from the beginning, is not to preach to the choir, but is to speak to the linear-minded people, meaning the ones that don't think in multidimensional terms like we are here right now, and communicate these forms of awareness, whether it's quantum physics, extraterrestrials, secret space program, Ascension, in a way that even regular people would understand, because it is truly science. You can do a whole thing. I did an 8-hour online conference called Science of Ascension. And I like challenge any person who isn't into this to look at that and not question whether we're actually ascending. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's really about getting those tools and being able to communicate to them. And also to add to the splitting of the world thing, I do think some events are going to happen that many people that are so closed off to that reality right now, don't even know exist, will come over to that, because there's going to be life-changing situations that are going to occur, drops of downloads, information that may get released that will have to make them question their reality. And many of them will probably end up where we're at. Some of them won't, So I'm hopeful that that's the route that we're going to be all taking.
That's interesting. I'm glad you said
well
that.
Said.
I'm glad you said that about going into your work and being there around people who aren't at your state of consciousness. Because when I go to work, what I found myself doing for a while was just checking out of this reality and just going back to my old self, the way I know that they would be comfortable around me, and I would find myself doing that. And, I realized the more and more I started talking about this stuff or just dropping little nuggets here and there, some people don't jive with it, but other people have stuff to say too. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. It's really an interesting experiment. But I think a lot of people need to hear that, because too many of us are going around not being ourselves. We're not existing in authenticity. And I think that's a big problem, especially with truthers, because we're so worried about what other people might think. But it's not, we're at a point now where we have to start, planting seeds. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's no holding back now. Now's the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. One thing I wanted to add to that is, psychologically, one of the things they do is they control us, like you were saying, Tyler, through our emotions. And our emotional system itself is the social dynamic system. So I'm actually going to be covering a lot of this in the third season I'm going to do of Into the Storm. It's going to be all about like the inner child and how the cabal hijack our inner child and use it against us. And we are herd creatures. We're herd animals. But we also have an apex predator side to us. And the school of thought is called RK selection theory that gets into this. And so what that means is that, very simply, every person you know of and you interact with in your local community, whether they're in your house, they're your neighbors, they're the people you work with, there's this part of you, the inner child, that demands that you're transparent and you reveal your true self to them. And if you do that, and it's a good exchange, you will feel a release of dopamine, you will feel a release of serotonin, It'll reduce your pain. It'll increase your intelligence capacity. It'll increase positive emotion. So we have all of these systems designed to reward us and make us smarter and healthier for having healthy social attachments, right? Now think about the way we live in our world. The way we live in our world is most of us get all our social interaction through this thing these days. You know what I mean? So most of the human beings you interact with aren't even physically near you. And the ones you do interact with physically, you've got this like NPC debased, like cardboard cutout version of yourself that you brandish to interact with them, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, anybody who's gone through an awakening experience and then goes out in the world feels this weird feeling of almost being like a fake version of yourself, because that's what has to happen. So what you're doing, you know, I think that's fantastic. As a matter of fact, me and my roommate were just talking about the same thing. Like we want to find like, you know, soup kitchen or, you know, whatever, some kind of group where we can go and interact with other people, because there's a whole part of my brain that's like, dude, you're not talking to enough people. You need to go hang out with more people. You need to go hug more people. You need to go be authentic with more people and use your hands to do something in the world and not just flit around the computer all day long. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, I'm telling you, there's psychological research. They've known this for a very long time. The neurotic, negative self-talk thinking that we're all plagued by in the modern world starts to go down, and it's all just about getting back to basics, finding a way to love each other again, finding a way to be authentic with each other again. So yeah.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Yes. Absolutely. I agree with that. And I like how you said that cardboard cutout version of yourself.
That's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, you always have the best, most detailed, elaborate analogies.
Yes.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm glad somebody likes them.
It's like I'm 5 minutes into it. I'm like, oh, this is an analogy.
It's almost like you came up with it before, but you didn't. It's like in the moment too. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, I'm just like freestyling. Yeah, this is what happens when you spend most of your time like reading shit. You know.
Yeah.
So. That's beautiful, though. It says a lot about who you are and the way your brain works. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely interesting. You mentioned the secret space program, Neil, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on this Starlink satellite system or whatever that Elon Musk put out.
Mm-hmm.
I saw today in an article that he's working on dimming the satellites so they're not as bright for the next launch, which is because people are complaining they're too bright. That's the whole article, which is dumb. I don't know. Weird. And he's talking about starting up his own internet that's going to work with these satellites. This is interesting to me. What do you think's going on here?
With Elon Musk in general?
Yeah, and that whole thing.
Yeah.
Internet and the satellites, the Starlink, yeah.
So I think Justin probably has more information on this one, but I would say that with Elon Musk and what he's doing with SpaceX and satellites up there, growing up, I was always told that you cannot go up into space without having multiple governments kind of give you the stamp of approval, that there's like basically like a mafia of governments, and you can't even go through the ozone layer. First of all, a little detour, side note, whatever happened to every time we go through the ozone layer, we weaken it, right? Remember that? And that completely went out of the window, by the way.
That doesn't exist.
That was just bullshit, right?
Yeah,
so I'm thinking like, in order to have advancement, we might need some sort of privatized company in order to give us that, because everything else within like governments are kind of stagnant, or they go black ops and black budget, and they do things off the books, right? Like maybe our own government. So I'm thinking maybe he has good intentions and is attempting to go into space in order to further us more than maybe NASA. But at the same time, his level of involvement and connection to individuals like that are allowing him to go into space and do what he's doing, these people have to be high elite, unless what they told us about having these being able to go into space, anybody can do it. Or that's not what I've been told. I've been heard for many years now that you actually do need approval. So the people that give approval aren't really the people that actually have the benefit of all humanity in store, right? So with Elon, I really don't know. I'm kind of just observing to see what's going to happen with him. My gut feeling is that we like we spoke about the other day, useful idiots. Like maybe he's just one of those, right? But he's kind of assisting them in order to push forward an agenda, but he maybe thinks that he just loves space and wants to further advancement. I don't really know if he's in cahoots with the cabal and knows about some, black agenda that's going on.
Was he talking about AI too? Like, because he used to warn against AI, and now he's kind of like going the opposite, saying
exactly.
It's inevitable, so we might as well.
Well, to me, like, he has to be the most mysterious public figure right now. Nobody knows what's going on with him. It's always a debate, and it's so confusing. And what were what did you have to say on that, Justin?
Well, to specifically address your question, I haven't heard about the story you're talking about, so I can't get too much into what it is. I will speculate on what you said, which is that I do know that Musk, I believe this was I think in 2012 or something like that, he was talking about putting up satellites to broadcast internet to the world for free, or, give people access to wireless internet, something like that. And it seemed like a really good idea at the time. And then all the 5G stuff started to come out, and, people kind of got a little freaked out. Rightfully so, probably. And so, I think based on what I know of Musk, and especially reading his body language and the way he speaks and the way he acts, so trying to look at it from a psychological profile perspective, he appears to me like somebody who was potentially groomed for the role that he's in right now. He exhibits Wilhelm Reich. He talked a lot about this. He has what I would call eye armor, which is there's a type of muscular rigidity in the eye that usually indicates a disturbed 90 days after the womb or being born period. So I don't know, that could just be from him having weird parents, or it could be because there was something done to him. I don't know. But it seems like a lot of the issues he's spearheading, when you listen to the guys, especially off the cuff, like on Joe Rogan, it sounds like they're his beliefs, it sounds like anyway. Although they could be, manipulated. I get the feeling though, like you were saying, Neil, I think he's like a useful idiot in the sense that he's a guy that isn't necessarily in on anything, but he was peripherally, you had people come in and encourage him to do something. Like maybe when he was in high school, this dude from, the NSA came hey man, you should get into computers, because they knew if they planted that seed in his head, he would do all this kind of stuff with later on in his life with computers and things like that. So I think one thing I'll say about the AI, first of all, I think simulation theory, which is the idea that we're living in a simulation controlled by aliens, I think that's basically creationism for people who don't believe in God, because it has all of the same marks of a universal deity, except instead of a deity, it's an alien race who created a computer. You know what I mean? So that's something interesting to consider. I also think the idea of us merging with AI is a little misguided. However, there is a core truth to it, because your body itself is a kind of computer system. And so we are souls indwelling this, meat suit, and this meat suit has a whole set of programming that, functionally it's basically just like a computer. So there is, I would argue, some truth to the idea that consciousness, the human soul, has to gain enough mastery so that it can properly take control over the computer's AI system that is the body, right? But I also think it would be very careful. We have to be extremely careful about putting chips in our bodies or anything like that, because, I think it's pretty obvious. I won't go too much on tangents there. So
no, nothing external, no foreign object is compatible with our body, which doesn't matter how you approach it. I just don't agree with it. I saw really quick. I know we're running out of time.
Sure.
But I saw a Reiki healer for the first time, and I had just had a dentist appointment 2 weeks prior. And she's like, "Did you recently have a shot?" I was like, "No, I couldn't think of anything." And she's like, "Are you sure?" She was getting a vision of me getting injected with something. I was like, "Oh, wait, they numbed me up at the dentist." And she's like, "That's it." She goes, "Whatever's in that is not compatible with your body." And she helped me energetically remove it. And it was really interesting to me that she even picked up on that. So that just tells me, if somebody is tapped in and can feel that, imagine all the other stuff that we're putting into our body, how it's just not compatible. And what would we be like if we weren't being just pummeled with all this foreign object, even the chemtrails, just the air we're breathing and living in, itself.
Yeah, I feel our bodies are like the best tools. We have the ability to connect to, if you want to talk about the chakra system alone, I feel like each of them represents a dimension. And there's a book, Bringers of the Dawn, with the Pleiadians, channeled Pleiadians, right? Book. And they talk about the 12th up to the 13th chakra, and how that, the 7 within us, the 8th one is 1 foot above us. And then it goes into the atmosphere, the solar system, the galaxy, the central sun, which is the black hole in the center. And the higher up you leave after your 8th chakra, the more people have the same chakra. So, for example, the one large on our planet, there are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't know, people that have that same one. All the way to the central sun, then you have entire soul groups going on, right? So I feel like we have the ability to tap into all those dimensions of awareness and not only download our galactic history, complete remembrance of who we are, all the tools and techniques we need to transcend reality and visualize whatever we need to do and create and manifest things, right? So what's happening with this whole junk DNA, unlocking our DNA, 12-strand DNA activation that people are talking about, to me seems like a science of the fact that some parts of our consciousness and our body have been shut down or not able to exist in this frequency range. And now we're shifting into a different octave of existence where we're able to tap into those tools. We don't need anything external. If you look at some of the books about Mars and Maldek and what happened there and what happened on Atlantis, you hear about the external Merkaba. The external Merkaba are basically tools and implants utilized in order to achieve certain states of consciousness, but it had a backfiring effect. Every single story ended up in devastation. So what we're doing now is creating the internal Merkaba, which goes into the fact that we can use our Merkaba to travel interdimensionally, right? So I think we don't need anything external. Maybe there's some sort of agenda being pushed that we do so that we can move away from the fact that we have everything we need within us.
Yeah. And beautifully said. And by the way, that book, Bringers of the Dawn, if anyone hasn't read it, it's interesting. So it was a channeled Pleiadian message from the 80s, I believe, the late 80s.
Barbara Marciniak.
Yeah. But if you read it now, it seems like it could have been written yesterday. It is that pure of information, and it is so relevant. You almost, I had to stop and like, okay, when was this written? Like, it's really profound. They basically predicted everything that we're in right now in that book.
Straight up.
Everything that we're going through. So we're running out of time. I'm going to wrap this up. Neil, I know you have the roundtable coming up this weekend with John D'Souza, Michael Sala, and someone else. Who else?
Oh, that's not till June 27th, so that's
I'm sorry,
a month away. But yeah, Laura Eisenhower, Michael Sala, John D'Souza, and myself. And basically, it's an online conference. It's called Ascension, Exopolitics, and Disclosure. So I picked someone from each of those communities. Laura Eisenhower's Ascension, John D'Souza is going to be doing the disclosure, and then Michael Sala will be talking about the exopolitics. And what Portal to Ascension really is full circle awareness. So I always come up with random thoughts and conference ideas, and I put them together. And I felt that we hit all like 3 of the main topics on the head with that one, where it's really full circle. What does ETs and disclosure have to do with Ascension, right? What does disclosure awareness and extraterrestrial awareness, not extraterrestrial disclosure, but the awareness, the spiritual nature, have to do with exopolitics and our communication and interaction with these beings in the near future, right? So this conference is going to be basically have that, and then I'm also going to be presenting on sound frequency and ancient history. So it's a really full circle conference. And if you sign up for any event on our website, normally it's like 22 to 33 for a workshop. You get a discount for that conference, which is $44, or you can just sign up for that conference alone. It's $55. But I just want to also let everybody know this month and next month, we're doing No One Turned Away for Inability to Pay. And we're also doing sliding scales because, a lot of people are home. A lot of people can't afford to attend events, but right now is the time to be informed. So we're basically allowing people to donate and pay if they want to. And if they can't, they should still come and be a part of our events, because right now is the perfect time for us to learn what we need to learn before we get back into the rat race. Because who knows what's going to happen after this? There's definitely a possibility we may all just jump back into the rat race, right? So go back empowered and fortified.
Yep. That's awesome. And I know and your trip to Mexico in November looks amazing, by the way.
We decided yesterday to move it to next year.
Oh,
oh man, okay.
I might actually go to that. Yeah.
Shit. Well, then hopefully all you guys can go.
Well, Justin, yeah.
You have a year and a half.
I wanted to go. I wanted to go this year, but I just couldn't make it happen. And now, actually, the thing that made me not make it happen is not going to be there next year. So,
there you go.
We're right in the money. So, all right. I just needed a global pandemic to make this event happen for me. That's
seriously. Yeah.
All right, it's a plan. We'll pre-order our tickets when we get off now.
Oh, straight up. I'll let you guys know. If you guys can come, it'll be epic. Like, we could do some stuff. We can create content together there too and go live and do podcasts. It could be really awesome.
Yeah.
It won't be a vacation. When I got together with Neil, it was no vacation. We hustled, man. We were working. We're like, all right.
But it was more fun than sitting at a beach, with a Mai Tai. Just the thoughts that we come up with are just so much more fun and empowering than just sitting around doing nothing. Right.
Agreed.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed. I can't go on those mainstream vacations anymore. I get nothing out of it,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's nice to sit and relax for a minute. Justin, what do you have coming up? Anything you want to talk about with Edge of Wonder, or any conferences?
Sure. I'm putting up the 9th episode of Edge of Wonder today. It's this is the final section of the Ultimate Planet of the Draco series. I'm entitling this like the little mini section, The Deal with the Devil, where I'm going to get into how the higher density beings make contact with us, what rules govern that, how they can actually mess with the visions and ideas that we have in our head, both positive and negative beings. I'm going to get into why the dark religions on Earth are tailored and created in a certain way, because they're designed to basically enslave the cabal. And then I'm going to get into how those interactions literally shaped the world that we're living in right now. The self-imposed slavery system I was talking about, that was basically given to the cabal, I'm arguing, by these higher density beings. And so we're going to get into all that. Probably got, like I said, I'm going to try to get it done in like 4 episodes. But to be honest with you guys, I could do like a whole other series just on the stuff that I'm going to talk about, because there's so much information. It's ridiculous. So yeah, really excited about that. Check out Into the Storm on edgeofwonder.tv. You can obviously check out Stillness in the Storm. That's where I run my news media site. I post news, media, information, inspiration, good news, all sorts of stuff. And for those of you who don't know, my Twitter account was recently suspended for Stillness in the Storm. So I created another one, so you can find the new official Stillness in the Storm at Stillness Storm. And then there's my personal Twitter. That's why I put more of like my musings, the higher level, like axiomatic, like principles I like to throw out there every once in a while. That's Justin Stillness, at Justin Stillness. And lots of cool stuff happening behind the scenes, lots of cool stuff going on. And yeah, really excited about what this year holds for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming on and doing this. It really was great. Definitely looking forward to connecting in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody listening, go subscribe or check out Portal to Ascension, Stillness in the Storm. Check these guys out.
Check out their podcasts.
Werewolf Radio. I highly recommend. Very, very good. And definitely these guys are putting in a lot of work. So I'm not steering you their direction just because they're on the show. I really do believe that they're putting in some amazing content. And just really quick, Aaron and I are going to be at Camp Disclosure in North Carolina. It's a conference at the end of the summer, late August, August 27th through the 31st. Tickets are on sale now. We're going to have Journey to Truth podcast Experiencers Lounge. We're going to be doing some really cool stuff there. So if anyone wants to hang out, it's the end of August, and details we'll put the link in the description so you can check it out. I guess that's.
You want to say some of the people that are going to be there?
Well, James Gilliland is going to be there. Simon Essler, Alex Bloom,
Steven Cefalo,
Matthew Mornian, Desiree Foley. There's like 20 speakers. It's going to be really
not a lot of big name. James is only
yeah. That's not too far for me. I might even be able to show up depending on when it is. Because I'm in Atlanta, so it's like a half-day drive. So
nice!
That should be cool.
It's close to Asheville, I think. North Carolina.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, get with me offline. We'll figure it out for sure.
Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and check their channels out. Check our channel out.
You're doing that now?
Yeah. All right, guys. See you next week. Good night.
Thank you guys.
Take care.
You guys.
Bye.